All right, game number 7 has completed. I'm about to head out to my OTB chess event. I wanted to give you guys a quick recap. We got Jan playing the white pieces, and again we see a Roy Lopez, and Magnus repeats the same variation with this early 8 rook to b8. So it's interesting to see what is Jan going to come up with here. Both players still have about 2 hours on the clock. And again we see this exchange, and the new idea that Jan comes up with is this trade on f6 coming up. So he immediately puts his knight into d5, and he's going for this trade knight takes knight, and then he wants to expand in the center. So he's actually going for a very low risk position and just trying to slightly press Magnus. And I think after such a long grueling game yesterday, my thinking was, from a psychological point of view, Jan might be okay with a quick draw today. So going for something so solid and low risk with this early knight trade, I think makes a lot of sense from Jan. And he kind of keeps the option open to play a long game and press Magnus like Magnus did to him yesterday if the position calls for it. So we see this trade of knights, and then Jan plays c3, getting ready to play d4. And Magnus did spend a lot of time around this point. He has to be careful. He doesn't want to get just positionally crushed after d4 and then bishop e3, and Jan just keeps expanding in the center. Magnus still does have the weakness on c7. The knight blocks that pawn, which isn't ideal, and the bishop on f8 is sort of a bad piece. So Magnus still has to figure out how to prove this is equal. Knight e7, bishop e3, bishop e6, and I think here you can still claim that Jan has a small advantage. He gets d4 in, builds this nice big center. That's what he wanted. C takes d. Now, right around this point, it's up to Magnus to figure out what's the best way to try to neutralize this center. And it's usually going to involve pushing the c pawn to build this nice pawn structure, d6, c5, b5. And Magnus finds this line, trading bishops, knight g6. And the idea is now to play c5. So he's got this knight on a good square. The knight helps defend e5, and the rook defends e5, and the pawn defends e5. So Magnus is very solid here, preventing Jan from playing e5. And Jan doesn't want to play d5 because then that opens up the dark squares around the d5 pawn. So we see rook e to c1 by Jan. And I think here, if I toggle on Stockfish, maybe there's other options besides rook e to c1 that were more aggressive. Like let's say rook to a5, sacrificing this pawn on e4, grabbing the b pawn. He could maybe create some different imbalances here. But after rook e to c1, this game actually pretty quickly fizzles out because c5 gets rid of one of the pawns in the center most likely. If Jan plays d5 here, for example, there's rook takes e4, and Jan can't win any pawns back. So pretty much Jan is forced to either take or play e5, and he chose e5. And I think the reason for e5 is actually Jan decided, I didn't get anything special out of this opening. I'm okay with some trades. So we see queen to f5 by Magnus. Instead of queen to f5, he could also take here, but really queen to f5 is just a fine move. These pawns are still all going to trade off on the dark squares. So we see d takes c, bishop takes, rook takes. And if you look at the clocks, 46 minutes to 48, when the players know it's a draw, they just start blitzing. And look at these next moves. Grabs a pawn, trades knights, trades rooks, trades queens. They already know it's a draw. They've already agreed, and they kind of just blitz out the rest of these moves. Pawn for pawn. They're at move 30. They have to make it to move 40. But really nothing special happens here. They play a symmetric position, and they actually, funnily enough, just make a couple extra moves to hit that move 40. But really this is a draw the whole way. And then the players agree to a draw. All right, so that's game number 7. Tomorrow we are live streaming game number 8. And in addition to the live stream, we will also have a recap. And the live stream has Ben Johnson from Perpetual Chess Podcast, which I'm very excited about, and Dane Matson, who's a chess.com video author. So a couple National Masters joining me tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. We will start the broadcast 15 minutes before game 1 with Ben and I, and we will be answering questions from the chat. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for the live stream. And then after the live stream tomorrow, right after, I will record a recap for game number 8. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day.